Hello, welcome everyone to the webinar today. We will just give it a moment to let people join, and then we will get going. Looking forward to talking to all of you today about Nature Park and the Nature Park map, and we really hope that you enjoyed today's webinar. You will be seeing something that will be posted. We've got Laura working behind the scenes, posted with a link to the Nature Park map. We're going to encourage an interactive demo today. So if you'd like to click on that link, there's no login or anything for that. And that link will take you straight to the Nature Park map. And then when Juliana is presenting the Nature Park map a little bit later, you can follow along on that demo with her. But if you prefer just to watch the demo and not follow along and do it yourself, then there's the link anyway for you to have hours and hours of fun exploring the map after this session. And just to note that we are recording this webinar, and you can find all the webinars that we've had as part of Nature Park. We do a lot of webinars on a lot of different things. We recently had a webinar around early years as part of our early years campaign. You can find those on the website under news and events, and you can also find them on our YouTube channel as well. They are great. Okay, we will get going with this webinar. So you're going to be hearing from two people today, myself. My name is Tom Lawrence. I'm a community science officer working on the National Education Nature Park, and I'm based here at the Natural History Museum. And then you'll also hear from my colleague, Juliana Sinclair, who is also a community science officer working on the National Education Nature Park, who also works at the Natural History Museum. So I'm going to be talking a little bit initially about brief introduction to the program, a little bit about the very exciting data that's being collected by learners across the country, and then Juliana is going to cover the Nature Park map, what it is, how to use it, and then using the Nature Park data layers outside of the program, so looking at using things in ArcGIS online. So hopefully, a few of you that are joining this webinar will be familiar with what the National Education Nature Park program is. Some of you might not have heard of it, or maybe just heard the name and don't know anything about it. So we'll just give a brief intro for those of you, maybe just a refresher, or for those of you who are not aware of what it is. Got some couple images just here. This first one, you can see an area of a playground, not really any biodiversity there, bit of a disused area of a playground. But now we've got that same playground. I can promise this is not an AI generated image or anything like that. This is something that these students have actually done. So this is a nursery in Southend that they've featured on our webinars before, talking about their Nature Park experience, and they turned a disused area of their playground into this flower garden here. So an area that's supporting wildflowers, that can support pollinators, a whole range of things. So that is really, the first year of the Nature Park program was about turning grey to green. That's still a key part of the program. We've sort of developed a few things since then, looking at grasslands and ponds especially. But this is what Nature Park is all about, making the school environment better, not only for students, not only for nature, but for the school community as well. And I'm sure that all of you who are on the school today can agree that you would much rather go to a school that has the bottom image than just the top image right there. So as I mentioned, Nature Park, young people, they're creating a network of green spaces in schools around England. It's a free program for all schools, nurseries and colleges. So just within England, completely free. All the resources that we have on our website can all be accessed without a login. For the digital tools, which we'll cover a little bit about, you do need a login for those, but all the activities, all the resources, they're all quality assured. Those are all free to access and download without having to be signed up. So what we're imagining, you can see those green dots on the right. Those are a number of the sites that have signed up to Nature Park. You can see a spread throughout the country. We're imagining all of those little dots as part of one big nature park. So they're exploring, they're learning sites and then transforming them into people and wildlife. And as I said, turning those grey spaces into greener ones. Very important point, Nature Park is part of the DFE Climate and Sustainability Strategy, and it's a key program in supporting schools' climate action plans, which is something that schools are required to have, and it really helps with all the pillars of the climate action plans. And it also helps in a whole range of different things. So you can see there's 3 E's there: emotional, developing a connection with nature; environmental, obviously boosting biodiversity; and educational, skills and knowledge. At the museum, we talk a lot about creating advocates for the planet, and those are 3 things that are hugely, hugely important for that. So just a little bit on the numbers so far. So we've got 1 in 3 of all schools and colleges signed up. So the number as of today was 8,956. And we have got more than 1,000 early years settings signed up. So part of that has come through our early years campaign. We've got various campaigns on different things, and we've recently been putting a lot of work into our early years offer, and we've got a lot of stuff on the website around that. So making things super attractive for nurseries, and you can see our webinar that we recently had on that with Ali Aspen from Learn Through Landscapes. Spoke a lot on that, and that you can find on our YouTube channel and our website. We're across all regions of England, and we've got regional teams all up and down the country, and those are made up of people that work for the RHS and then also Learning Through Landscapes. It's a big multi-partnership program, and you can see mapped over 21 million square meters of habitats. So if you've been to a webinar before, you know we like to do things as it is the Olympics right now, although Winter Olympics, 16,800 Olympic-sized swimming pools. So yeah, quite a little bit of area. This is the Nature Park 5-step cycle. So this is the cycle that we're encouraging all schools to follow. And you can see right there, relatively self-explanatory, but the idea is they get to know their space before they do anything. So as we mentioned, we want things to be evidence-based decisions, identifying opportunities, making decisions, making those changes happen, and then recording those changes. And there are some images around some of the resources that we have to those. Nature Park is at its heart a community science project. Both of us are community science officers. And that is, when people from all walks of life are teaming up with scientists to conduct real scientific research. All the data that students are collecting, not only are they using it for themselves within their school for those evidence-based decisions, but it's all contributing to real national data sets. So really, really important data, because no one really knows what's going on in the educational state in terms of nature, habitats, biodiversity, and who better to find out that information than the learners themselves. So they're taking on the role of the researcher, and they are actively involved in the research process. And as I mentioned with Nature Park, collaborating with researchers to measure the biodiversity gain across the educational state and really contributing to real research into nature recovery. And I'm sure many of you can imagine the possibilities with data that they are collecting. So some of the community science data they're collecting: habitat mapping data, which I'm going to talk about briefly, biodiversity surveys, which I'm also going to talk about briefly, and then iNaturalist as well, which Juliana is going to dive a little bit more into. And in terms of the numbers, we've had almost 2,000 schools or 2,000 settings that have started mapping the habitats on their school grounds. So the habitat mapping, it's been adapted from UK HABs and the Urban Greening Factor. We have lots and lots of support for the educators and the learners on how to map their habitats. The habitat mapping is intended to be them mapping the baseline habitats that they have, so their sort of starting off point, and this is sort of a one-time activity that they do, mapping their whole school grounds. So everything, the grey space, the green space, the blue space, if they're fortunate enough to have that, mapping that as their baseline. So then when they make those changes, we have something that we and they have something to compare it against to. And we've got lots of support for them. We have activities also. So the idea is this is integrated within the curriculum. So for all those different 8 habitats, there's activities that they can do, but there's also scaffolding activities to bring them to a point where they could happily and effectively map their habitats. And then in terms of quality assurance, maybe initial question you've got sitting there as well, how good is this data? What is the quality of this data? Well, we have a lot of measures in place to check the quality of habitat mapping. We've done testing in schools with all the different methods to collect this habitat information, and we have a lot of support around it. And we also do quality sort of spot checks of different habitat maps. And if we notice that issues are coming up, we're fortunate enough as a program to be able to, evolve and change things to make sure that those maps are as high quality as possible. And we really take on feedback as a program. We love hearing feedback from teachers, be it how great things are, but also constructive feedback. And that's led to us making a lot of changes. So for example, with the habitat mapping, it used to just be on an app that you could add things. We completely redeveloped things, redeveloped the page, and we put it as a browser, and the numbers of those habitat mapping and the quality of the habitat maps absolutely shot up when we did it, because it was much easier for people to do. So these are just a couple for mapping tree habitats. Few activities that students can do. We've done these with primary and secondary school students. So the idea is they would do the scaffolding activity, and then they would use this flow chart, and that would take them to the specific habitat. So broadleaf woodland, evergreen woodland, or mixed woodland, and there's a whole range of different things that they can put. And we've got these similar sort of flow charts for all those different habitats categories that I showed earlier. As I mentioned, they can add on their habitat changes, so any changes that they've made to the site. So this is a school that you'll see in the demo later, that they've added some meadow to their playing field. And these are things that, when you see the habitat map later, that all schools would be able to see. So that's the sort of thing that we're encouraging. We know it's not realistic for them to completely change a whole playing field into meadow, but looking at those verges, those corners, those places where they can get vital habitats in. And they've also done a range of other things. You can see they've put in some flower beds as well. So they can use that to document the changes that they've made over time, but then also we can use that to compare this against their baseline habitats to get an estimate of the increase in biodiversity that they have made. And as I said, the idea is that all these decisions have come from evidence-based decisions. And we also hope then that they would use these changes that they've made within curriculum. So we're promoting the use of, say, they've created that meadow. How can they use that meadow within their curriculum learning across a whole range of different subjects? So maybe they're looking at the different colors within the meadow and they're using that in art, or maybe something to do with maths. There's a lot of different things that they can do, and that's what we're encouraging. Biodiversity surveys, we've got one out currently, and we're about to release our second. So the one we have currently is the pollinator count, and that's been adapted from the pollinator monitoring scheme. We're going to be releasing our grassland plant survey in April, and that has been adapted from the National Plant Monitoring Scheme. We work very closely with other organizations. As I said, it's a multi-partnership program, and UKCEH, so UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology, have really been super helpful when we're designing these surveys, when we're designing the adaptations, but then also just supporting us sort of throughout the process. We test these surveys in both primary and secondary schools, and each of those surveys has a version for Key Stage 2 and 3, and then one for Key Stage 4 and 5, and they will have scaffolding resources for them. And then we use this testing as well to evaluate the data quality and adapt those surveys. So again, thinking about the quality of the data, we'll go out, so Juliana and myself plus others, and we'll be doing the count with the pollinator count, doing the count at the same time as the students, so then we can compare the data that they're collecting versus the data that we are collecting. And then we also work with National Biodiversity Network on our iNaturalist as well, and they have been super helpful with that. So I'm just going to show two things quickly right here. So for the pollinator count, this is our key stage 4 and 5 version. You can see the groups match up. If you're familiar with POMs, the groups match up with POMs. But we went into primary schools and looked at students collecting this data and noticed they were getting the category wrong decent amount of time. Those in sort of year 4, 5, 6, not necessarily the greatest at identifying solitary bees from honeybees or hoverflies from honeybees. So we made an adaptation, again, worked with UKCH on this to make a key stage 2 and 3 version. So one that it's still useful scientifically with the data, but it just has less groups. And one thing to say, with all the resources on the website, including the biodiversity surveys, that all of these go through a quality assurance process. So everything gets checked by the curriculum teams, by the science teams. If there's anything to do with climate science on it, it goes through the Royal Meteorological Society. It goes through language checks. It goes through design and accessibility checks. And it goes through checks to make sure that it is great in terms of the web. So all our resources are quality assured. We take that very seriously. And it's a long process making these resources because we want to make sure it's the best product that is out there. So now I'm going to hand over to Juliana, who's going to do a demo on the map.
Thank you very much, Tom. Okay, right. So the Nature Park map that we're going to look at in just a moment is kind of the one-stop shop place where you see all the Nature Park data in one place. So, for example, what we currently have on there now are 3 sort of main chunks of data. So you've got the community science biodiversity surveys, the habitat mapping, pollinator count, and iNaturalist that Tom mentioned. We've got nature connection data and environmental quality data as well. And on top of this, we have an external layer, a geology layer, and it really comes into its own, and you can really see how transferable it is outside the Nature Park project when you can layer the Nature Park data together with external data sets on ArcGIS Online. And we'll go through that in just a moment. So really the key message here is that it is open access. Anyone in the world can access, visualize, and use this data, and there's no login barrier at all to accessing this data. So how we hope the map is used in schools, it is primarily for educators to use alongside their learners as a planning tool to make those habitat improvements. We really hope it's used within curriculum time, within lessons. And really it's a chance to sort of see the impact that they're making, the collective difference that is happening across these school sites, and to celebrate the work that they're doing. So let's head into the Nature Park map. So there'll be a link in the chat for you to have a look. I'll just share my screen from here. So this is the home page. So hopefully you already have the map open. You can access it direct from the home page by just scrolling down. And here is a big map. So by clicking on the map here, it will open up. And I'll just briefly say there's a technical guide here that walks you through each of the features with really nice short and snappy videos, something to look at the end of the webinar. So I'll just close the splash screen, and please do follow along as we go. So just going to zoom in a second to show you all those green dots are the site boundaries of all the schools signed up to Nature Park. And the more colourful dots are those that have started habitat mapping with their baseline habitats already. So just going to walk you through some of these buttons. First of all, base maps. This is just sort of your background map, and you can pick a background that you might like to be able to see the data in different ways. I'm just going to go back to this one here, and if you get this box, just click the X button. Then we have Open Map. This is to see the curated data set. So you have here at the top, it says curated maps. So it's kind of ready to go maps that are sort of ready to just already pre-made and ready to go and upload on the map. If you like a bit more of a pick and mix and you want to create your own data sets and your own map, you go to the Add Layer button, the big plus sign. And this is where you get to see all the available data that you can add to the map together. So you'll see when there's a minus on the left-hand side, they're already automatically on the map. And here is where you can add things such as the pollinator count, the iNaturalist, the nature connection activities, the environmental data, and so on. If you like the look of any of these and you want to know a bit more or go and support a setting to collect that data, if you click on the I symbol, that will give you a bit more information, and it has a hyperlink that takes you directly to collect the data that then will flow through and appear directly on the map. So just to bear in mind, this is a developing tool, and the data sets on here may evolve. For example, we'll be adding the grassland survey, the grassland plant survey, as soon as that launches as well. The Nature Park map launched just a few months ago, so it's still kind of quite a new tool, but we expect it to really get rich data appearing very soon in the coming weeks and months. So I'm going to add a few of these layers on. Please pick what you like the look of. I'm going to add habitat changes, the pollinator count simplified, and the weather and microclimates, and the shade mapping. Okay, hopefully you've added a few layers that you like the look of. I'm now going to start going to individual schools. So there'll be the names popping up in the chat. The first one is going to be Colnice Junior, and then if you add UK, otherwise it'll send you to America. So Colnice Junior UK, you type that in the search bar on the sort of top left, and then enter, and here we are. Just before I drill in, just zoom in a second and look at, like, these are all the different schools that I've started mapping their habitats and collecting data just within one neighborhood. So you can really see how broad the reach is of Nature Park. Okay, so let's have a bit more of a look then. So with the map layers button, this allows you to really get a deep dive into the data. So we can do things like the habitat changes. I'm just going to toggle those off with the tick box. And I'm just going to look at the habitat areas. So these are the baseline habitats. These bottom 3 points, lines and areas are the baseline habitats. And you can kind of toggle them on and off to sort of showcase what you want to see and hide what you don't want to see. And for example, if I just, those are the baselines. So what was there to begin with? And then if you want to see, well, what kind of habitat improvements has this school done? There you've got the meadow that Tom was mentioning. We've got some insect hotels. These lines here are the hedges that if you click on, it will appear, and various other flower beds and bird boxes in this corner of the school too. So you can really start to see how impactful the change is. If at any point it gets too busy, you can also adjust transparency by clicking on these two little sort of boxes on each of the layers. So for example, if the habitat areas, I just want to make those a bit paler, for example. And I'm just going to turn the habitat changes off. And I'm also going to turn off the microhabitat points. But you can choose what to sort of show and what to dive into a bit further. Okay. Hopefully you're all following along and having a play, toggling the layers on and off. I'm now going to drill a bit more into this, these yellow butterfly symbols, which are the pollinator counts. So I go to the pollinator count layer, and you can see that they're in two different corners of the school, which is already starting to look interesting. If you go to the table symbol and click, it will open the attribute table for that data set. So this is now showing you all the pollinator counts in England. So very important is to make sure that all the data you want to see is showing on the map. And then there's crucially, there's three dots in the sort of bottom right-hand corner at the top of the table, crucial to tick those 3 dots and then filter table by map extent, which means that now will only show you the pollinator count data for what's showing on the map right now, so for this school. And this table is all kind of, you can move the columns around, you can sort of adjust, and you can also sort them. So for example, here we've got, you can see all these here are the flower gardens in the top corner. And in the bottom, we've got all these tall wild patches. So what the school has started doing is collecting pollinator count data by repeating the same pollinator count survey in 2 different comparable habitats, which are starting to get really rich data and from which they can make really informed evidence-based decisions on where and how to improve their site for pollinators, for example. And just to briefly say that we will soon be having a new digital tool like a data portal that will allow you to export the data en masse. But for now, there is a workaround. So if you just click and select the data, the rows that you want to export, and then the 3 dots on the right again, that will allow you to export the selection to CSV, to drill into the data and have it in a CSV format. But we will be having this data portal, as I say, which will allow you sort of much more kind of easier filtering and exporting of data. Right, I'm going to close the table now, and we're going to go to the next school. Hoping I've not lost any of you. Please do shout. I'm going to now go to Comberton Village College. And this one you can just type Comberton Village College and enter. Okay. Right. And what I want to show you here is this school has started collecting multiple kinds of data. So they've got their baseline habitats again. But what we also can see in the legend is there's these triangles, which is part of the shade mapping exercise, where they started to look at, okay, well, what's the sort of the shade situation around our site? So they've looked at their car park and their playing fields, which are quite open. Then in the middle of their school, which is partially open, and then at the edge, at the bottom of the school, at the back, in the woodland is shaded, more than 75% obscured. And what they've also started doing, these circles here, are the microclimate data, which they've started collecting. So you can just about see this school has just started to get an understanding of, okay, we've got baseline habitat, we want to look at the shade around our site, we want to collect a bit more weather and microclimate data. And they might be able to do things that compare, well, what's the microclimate and the humidity or the temperature like in their non-natural impermeable surface versus their non-natural permeable surface, for example, across these 2 areas of their site. And you can just start to see how collecting a bit more of this data can start to give really rich insights into individual school sites, but as a whole across all the nature park school sites as well. I'm just going to show you a feature here, another tool which is called the measuring tool, both to measure distances, but for the elevation profile, this is quite a nice one to try out. So if you click on measure and then elevation profile, and then we're going to go across the school site, so starting from the left and kind of ending about there. It can start to give you some really interesting insights into the school as a whole, and it can feed into lessons about, well, where does water pool across the site and where might the best places be to enhance the water bodies, for example, on the school site, or talk about flood risk, for example. Okay, we're going to look at one more school, and this one is going to be easy to type. It's Newbury, UK. And for this one, I need to add an extra layer, which is the iNaturalist observations. So I'm going to go back to my Add Layer button, and then I find the iNaturalist, which I select. It may zoom out, so just type in your location again. Oh, okay. I'm just going to show off the school because look at the amazing amount of iNaturalist observations that they've collected. And just to show you that each of these, you can also get a link direct to that observation on the iNaturalist website. So for example, if you click on one of them, it will have a view link, which will then take you to that observation, in this case, research grade. And also just to say that we have an iNaturalist project, a National Education Nature Park project on iNaturalist, which is this one here. And we have lots of observations on here. The school has collected 3,306 observations, of which over 2,000 are research grade. Absolutely fantastic data set. If you find yourself on iNaturalist and would like to do some IDing, do please go on this project and support the schools with friendly identification advice to help them learn and get them started on their biological recording journey. Okay. What we're going to do now is head to the ArcGIS page to just show you just how transferable and interoperable the data set is. So I'm just going to go on this tab here. You don't need an account for this exercise. If you do have an account, it will allow you to save the maps you've created, but you won't need it to be able to layer lots of different data sets together. So from this, there will be a link in the chat to go to ArcGIS Online. So from this page, we are going to click on the map button at the top. And just to show you that the Nature Park map, as well as the Nature Park data, as well as being on our own map, because it's open access and we want it to be as useful as possible, it's also onto ArcGIS Online as the exact same layers. So with the plus button in the top left, click Browse Layers. And we're just going to change it from the Living Atlas with the drop down to ArcGIS Online. And here we can search. So I want to look at Nature Park site boundaries. Just type in Nature Park site boundaries. The first one there, you can just click Add, and that will be on the map. Then I'm going to look at Nature Park baseline habitats. Nature Park baseline habitats. This is the second one along. And this is really where it gets fun. So now you can add perhaps existing data sets or layers that you have, or existing conservation plans, or for example, local nature recovery strategy measures. So for example, we're going to be adding LNRS, potential measures, Lancashire. And it's the first one there. You can see where I'm going with this. And what we're now going to be adding is beelines. And it's the first one there. Dive in. Just to note, if you have this timeline on your screen, you can remove it by clicking the clock button just next to it at the top. Not essential though. Okay, let's browse in these layers then. So on the very left, the second button down, it says layers under the plus sign. And this is where we get to drill in a bit further. So first of all, with the beelines, they're not actually showing right now. So just clicking on the beelines name, we just have to expand the visibility. So if you scroll down to visibility, visible range, and just expand that all the way, there we are. I'm just going to hide the potential measures. It's got an eye symbol that I'm just going to hide for the time being. Okay, now I'm going to search for Chorley. We're going to zoom into Chorley. Okay. Now this red line across is the bee line, the bug life bee line. And you can see even in just a small area, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 schools that are on the bee line, which would have great potential for improving their site for pollinators, for example. I'm just going to make the transparency of the bee line a little bit higher, so that's a bit paler. And I am now going to turn on the potential measures. So I'm going to unhide them. And I'm going to click on them and also make their transparency about 50%. Here we are. And I'm just going to move the baseline habitats a bit higher up and move the potential measures a bit higher up. You don't need to do this, it's just for illustrative purposes, but you can move the layers around. And it's just about how the layers are stacked. So let's look at this school here, because this is where it gets really fun. So it's on the bee line already, but also on the local nature recovery strategy. It's all around the area. It's within the local nature recovery strategy potential measures area. So what does this mean for this school? So if we just click above the school, it says create more connected pollinator wildflower rich habitat and connect to the bee lines. What a great opportunity does this school have to add a bit more wildflower rich habitat on their own school site and be part of that local nature recovery strategy, as well as linking up to the bee line. And a second measure is the school is right next to the canal just here. And if we click on this patch, it will show us the same as before. And then there's a little right-hand arrow at the top that then shows you create and enhance water bodies. So what a great opportunity to add some sustainable drainage or even a wildlife pond. And this is where it really gets fun, I think. It's where you can really start using the Nature Park data, layering it with external data sets such as these, or perhaps your own conservation plans, and see how useful it can be to involve and include schools in the nature recovery plans and strategies you may have, or how useful it might be to you to engage schools in this work. Okay, we're going to return to the slides now. And do please carry on and explore the map after the webinar and have a play with ArcGIS online, because the possibilities are endless. Just a few notes on how you could use the Nature Park map in your own work. This could be a chance to research a setting before you visit it, for example, so that you can tailor your offer based on those baseline habitats that they've collected, the biodiversity data that they may have already explored and collected on their site, and really be a chance to kind of make it as impactful as possible. And if you would like to use maps in your engagement sessions, do feel free to use the Nature Park map to teach green digital skills such as GIS mapping skills. And we've gone through this already about how you can layer lots of different data sets together and make the most of it in your own work. Where to find help? There is the habitat mapping page on the website, which has both the troubleshooting guide with short practical advice and the digital tools how-to guide especially has these short snappy videos that really support educators in every step of the way of doing habitat mapping and using all our digital tools. So if you are finding yourself wanting to support settings on their Nature Park journey, mapping their habitats and collecting useful biodiversity data, do please make use of those guides. And also just to mention, as Tom said, our regional offices spread across the country who are fantastic people, really knowledgeable about Nature Park and all these digital tools, and very happy to help schools in the local area, so do join up. In terms of what's coming next, it's the data portal that I mentioned earlier. We really want to be able to make the data not only visually accessible, but for folks to be able to filter and download all the nature park data useful to them. And we have a biodiversity survey sprint coming up with the pollinator count reopening in April and the grassland plant survey launching very soon as well. As you know, there's always a sprint in springtime in the environment sector, so I'm sure I'm not the only one here. A brief note that one of the sister projects of the Nature Park programme is Climate Ambassadors. And if you're interested in supporting schools on their sustainability journey and creating really impactful climate action plans, Climate Ambassadors are recruiting volunteers with knowledge in the ecology and biodiversity field. And you don't need to be an absolute expert. It's really about having enthusiasm and a bit of knowledge in this field. And they will be providing all the training and all the information to go out and support schools themselves. So just sign up there if you're interested in that opportunity. And this is our last slide. So just to recap, that if you forget the rest of what we've gone through today in the talk, just to say that we have 1 in every 3 schools across England taking part in the project, that the Nature Park map is completely open access, and the community science surveys, such as the habitat mapping and the biodiversity surveys, they have been adapted from the UK Habitats Directive and national monitoring schemes, which means we really want to make the data as useful as possible and as interoperable with as many other projects and schemes as possible outside our project as well as within it. Just to also mention that if anybody is interested in diving a bit further into the community science and the scientific research of our project, I am more than happy to provide upskilling opportunities to dive a bit deeper in the community science aspects of this project. So do please get in touch. I have both my own email and Tom's email on the screen right now, so please jot those down if they are useful, and please do get in touch. We are now going to answer any questions if they've not been already answered. Okay.
No questions.
Wonderful. I'll just leave that up for just a few more minutes. Has anybody had a go at following along the demo? And oh, here we go. We do have a question, I believe.
That was you in response to you saying.
Oh, has anybody had a go? Oh, wonderful. I'm glad you have been able to follow along. That's super. Okay. I'm just going to stop sharing just now. Yeah.
Reminder to everyone, Laura has put it in the Q&A that the recording will go on our YouTube channel, and it will be, excuse me, on the Nature Park website by the end of the week. So hopefully you've all got the link to the map. But if you didn't have a chance or you want to do it at a later time, but you don't remember how to do it, there is a guide on the Nature Park map as well on how to use it. But yeah, this recording, as well as all our recordings, will be on our YouTube channel and the Nature Park website. And yeah, I'd highly encourage you to check out the website if you haven't. We've got a lot of different things on there, all the resources that are filterable by key stage, by subject. Because remember, Nature Park is not just about science, it's also about all the subjects in the curriculum. We want English teachers and maths teachers to get just as much out of Nature Park as people that might be teaching biology. We also have a page, we just recently redeveloped it, which is all about some of the success stories within the Nature Park, and you can filter those by region as well. So if you're interested in potential, case study success stories within, the area that you're located in, you can filter those by region. And yeah, lots of things. We've got lots of blogs. We've got blogs on how the science that the students are collecting is contributing to real data, real scientific data. So we've mentioned that briefly, but if you want to dive a little bit more into that and looking at the Predicts program that the museum is involved in, we've got lots of information about that if you want to take a deeper dive. But I think we will finish there. Thank you so much for attending. Really appreciate you giving up some time to let us talk to you, and I hope that everyone has a great day. And as I said, don't hesitate to reach out with any question. There's no question too small. And yeah, really appreciate your time and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.